Well, good evening, folks, and thank you so much for joining us for part two. This is a wonderful topic that certainly, as I said last week, near and dear to my heart. It's energy conservation and solar energy have been drilled into my head since I was very young. And as I said last week, when we purchased a bed and breakfast that was primarily heated by electricity, and we discovered that there was nothing we could do to stop B&B guests from sitting on the edge of the hot tub for like 2 hours having drinks and being overheated. So they're just cooling down, and I'm thinking, this is costing a lot. And there was really nothing I could do. And then, of course, they go in and they have a big, long shower, and I discovered that I wasn't going to get them to conserve energy. And so we covered every square inch of the roof with solar panels and have now created what we understand to be the Canada's first 100% solar powered bed and breakfast. So it's turned from a huge expense per year to actually a marketing opportunity for us to say that we've got a solar powered B&B, and some people come just to take selfies in front of the B&B. It's been absolutely wonderful. And so this topic is, it's gone from kind of sour to bragging rights in our house. And so I'm very happy to have this panel again. And when we installed our panels, there wasn't funding from BC Hydro to support the installation. There is now, so it's even better now. We had the added benefit because we were running a bed and breakfast, we could write off the capital expense, and so at least it's before tax dollars and not after tax dollars. But with BC Hydro grants, which is something that we're going to hear a lot about tonight, the opportunity for solar is really, really powerful. And so let's get underway. I want to begin by thanking the Sunshine Coast Credit Union and the town of Gibsons for co-sponsoring these sessions. Their sponsorship is gratefully received. It really wouldn't happen without them. And of course, Blue Act Marine Society for putting on this whole series. So we've got a wonderful panel similar to last week, but the focus is going to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more on the hands-on, and a little bit more on how do we pay for this. So we've got Brad Jennings, Ross Gordon, Gary Pajot, and Liam Bonser, all experts in energy conservation and solar energy. And I'm going to start tonight with Jerry Pajot. Over to you, Jerry.
Just a reminder, what you learned last week was the basics, what the kilowatt is compared to a kilowatt hour, that kind of stuff. Where we started in developing and designing a plan. Talked about sequencing of actions, how it's important if you're going to put in a heat pump and do your insulation, that you do the insulation first, because then you need a smaller heat pump and you save money, and it's a bit more efficient. And then we talked about lighting and heating and ventilation equipment, and how to justify what the costs are, what the benefits are. So tonight I will continue with the cost benefits now with solar and also the building envelope. So how do you figure out what it's going to pay back? Now, ideally, you just say, hey, it's going to reduce my greenhouse gases, just do it. But if you're like me, you also have to think about, well, I'm on a pension. What am I going to do first? So I'll go through basically the kinds of things you have to think about for that. Then we'll talk about executing your plan, how to get it done, how to pay for it, and how to apply for the grants and loans that are available that really weren't available not too long ago. So it makes a huge difference. You need to know about them. Okay, so building envelope. Ross gave a really good breakdown last week about building envelope, and then Brad gave examples. He showed us how you do it. Basically, add insulation, make sure you've got a good vapor barrier, weather stripping, and seal air leaks if you've got an older house. Ideally, a new house takes care of that. Upgrade your windows and doors. If you've got single glazed, run, don't walk to the nearest window store. Install awnings and window coverings. Awnings and window coverings will help reduce the heat load in the summertime. If you don't have one, a really good option is to install a heat recovery ventilation system, HRV, or the one that saves, that also controls your HRV, which controls the moisture as well. ERV, yes, energy recovery ventilation. So those are the kinds of things. So I'm going to go through just two of these examples, one for insulation and one for windows, and just kind of give you an idea how to do the calculations, what it's going to be worth. So first thing about insulation, you'll hear people talk about U values and R values. When you buy a bag of fiberglass of say R22 on it or R28, whatever it is, that basically is the resistance to heat passing through. It's measured in units of BTUs per square foot per degrees difference across from the front and the back of it. Or metric, I won't go into any more, that doesn't matter. So basically, if you've got fiberglass bat, then you get 3.1 R value per inch. So if you've got a 3.5 inch, you've got a 11 to 13, depending on which manufacturer you get. If you've got a 6 inch, then you've got 14. If you've got an 8 inch, etc. So the interesting thing here is per inch, fiberglass bats are the cheapest and by far the easiest to install, but they're also not the most efficient. So if you've got a limited amount of space, by moving up here, you get higher performance, mostly at higher prices too. So again, it's trade-offs. So fiberglass board would go on the outside. So basically, one of the problems with walls, typically 2x4 or 2x6, with insulation in between, the insulation might be a R3.1 per inch, but unfortunately, it's only about an R1.5 or 2 for the wood. So you've got all these chunks of wood that are letting lots of heat through, even though you've got a nice bat in between that does its job. So your wall isn't necessarily an R14 wall. It might only be an R9 wall because of the difference between the studs and fiberglass. And of course, that's one really huge reason that you don't want to use metal studs outside, because they are like, I think, 0.2 or 0.3 compared to wood's almost 2. So it's huge difference. Fine inside, but don't make them on your wall unless you have some way to break the heat. Okay. So when I look at a building envelope, this is for a 1965 building that I analyzed, and what I do is I look at the window area, how much wall area there is, what kind of construction it is, what's in the ceiling. The ceiling insulation might be 6-inch fiberglass in between the joists. Sorry, it's rafters up top, isn't it? Joists. Is it? Okay. So you've got doors, you've got ceiling, and you've got whatever's on the floor. So it could be on a crawl space, or it could be like a basement, just sitting concrete on grade. And how they insulate that makes a difference as well. So this house had some single glaze left. I guess originally at 65 they were all single glazed, but they had done, I guess, 4 out of 5 windows had been switched over to single glazed, but quite a while ago. So they were the old double glazed aluminum with very small air gap. So you can see the R value windows, and double glazed is much better. However, the modern windows, the Energy Star argon filled, and all of that good stuff with proper breaks in the frame, maybe vinyl instead of aluminum, that kind of stuff. They're up around 4. So when you even just switching out from an old double glaze to a new double glaze can have a big impact on your heat. But certainly, if you've got single glazed, you want to right away go to something better. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to look at the ceiling area. It was a 1,200 square foot home with 2 levels, so 1,200 square feet up above and 1,200 square feet on a concrete pad. And it had, I guess, 6-inch rafters and 5.5-inch fiberglass in between the rafters. So typical attic for that period. So what I said was, hey, let's upgrade the ceiling area from one 5.5-inch bat and just lay another 5.5-inch bat diagonally across on top of it. So basically go to 11 inches, which is a very, very easy, it's something anybody can do, or it's pretty cheap for to hire somebody to do it. It's just very simple to lay out. So if you do that, the cost of the bats are $2,000. If you do the labor yourself, the job is $2,000. If you hire somebody, it probably doubles to $4,000 or $5,000. And then you can see that our value goes from 17 to 39 because the bat that I chose was an R22. So just add 22 to the old one. And what that does is it reduces the heat loss. And if you remember when I told you last week, the average BC lower mainland house used 100 gigajoules. So this one was using more, it was 132 gigajoules per year of heat required to keep the house comfortable. These guys kept it around 69 or 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is 20 degrees C. And when you upgrade the ceiling, it drops it down to 126 gigajoules. So it's just a number. The reason I'm telling you all of this is please go out and hire somebody like Ross or any of the energy advisors, because they will model your house. They will actually measure all of the surface areas, look at what's going on, and tell you, here's where you are now, and then suggest these things are good for you, and if you do it, here's how much you will save. Because with this information, again, the before and after picture for the Q, the heat flow, heat requirement. If you're on baseboards, that was $5,800 a year that they were paying. Right, their electricity bill was huge. And you can say, if you fix it, you'll save $287 a year, so that you have a 7-year payback to something that will last the rest of the life of your house. And you get, this is just if you had to pay for it yourself, you get credits that Russ will tell you all about. So it's actually way better payback. So again, if there's things like this you can do, this is really worth it. And I'll go to another example about the windows, the single glazed I was telling you. So if you go from the 0.89 R value to a 4.35, which is the really good Energy Star argon filled window, it costs a lot more. The cost per window is about $100 a square foot typically that's installed. So you will save, see the change in the heat loss, which is worth $350 a year. So again, you can, after you get, I think it's around 50% that you can get back as a credit. Ross will tell you the exact numbers, but think it's around that, then your payback is a matter of 3 or 4 years. So again, windows, once they're in, should last 25, 30 years. So totally worth doing. Okay, so that's building envelope. Now are there any questions about that before I switch on to solar? Okay, so the takeaway is either do it yourself or get somebody who knows how to do these calculations, and right away you can tell, is it worth doing or not? It's interesting, if you already had 8 or 10 inches of insulation in the attic and you wanted to add 6 more, the payback is dramatically less. Because as you get more and more insulation, there's less and less return because there's less heat leaving in the first place. So you have less to save. So, okay, I will proceed. Okay, so I'm talking about a solar energy system for electricity generated. So PV means photovoltaic. How do I decide how much I'm going to get? How much can I put on my roof? Which way is it going to be pointing? I can figure out how much it costs, so much for the installation. I just have to get an electrician and say, I'd like to put something up. He'll tell you how much it costs. He'll give you a quote anyway. But the question is, how much are you going to make? And how much you make depends on how much sun reaches the panel. So the amount of shading, if you have a lot of shading, it's probably not worth doing. The tilt angle, so if the sun is there, you want your panel to be at 90 degrees to the sun. That will produce the most power. If it's really shallow and the sun is low in the winter, you have less area exposed to those photons coming down. So that makes a difference. Are you pointing south or not? So if you're pointing south, you get the most sun. If you're pointing east, then you don't get any of the afternoon sun because it's pointing away from, once it's past noon, the sun is behind your panel. The solar panel efficiency, which has been getting better and better. So typically what you do is you want to look at, when you're purchasing them, how many watts am I getting per dollar, or how many dollars per watt is it costing me? At the moment, you should be able to get panels for less than $1 a watt. They're just getting better and better. When I first bought mine, they were $4 a watt. It doesn't always pay to be early. Okay, and then inverter efficiency, they're pretty good. That's the efficiency of turning the direct current panel production into alternating current that feeds your appliances. And the weather and seasons. So I'm going to just quickly show you this. Seasonality and orientation. So the average BC household that heats with electricity uses about 15,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year, 15 megawatts. So you can find out just by looking at your bill. You'll have, I guess, either 12 or 6 bills in a year. Just look at it. It tells you how many kilowatts you used each period, kilowatt hours. So then, the other important thing is that to know that production is about 10 times higher in July than it is in December. So if you're off grid, that's really, really hard on you, because just when you've got the most lights on and you're trying to heat your house, you get the least amount of solar. So that's why we're super lucky here in BC. We have BC Hydro with their net metering plan, and that means that during the summer, they will give you credit for anything extra you produce off your house. It goes off to feed your neighbors, and then in the wintertime, they give you your power back, and they just remove those credits. So if you have enough credits, like I do, you don't have to pay anything other than the connection fee every 2 months, $12. Good deal. That's an extremely effective and cheap battery. We're lucky that BC Hydro can do that. It's good for them because in the summer they don't have any water. In the winter they've got tons of water. We don't have any sun. So it's almost made in heaven. It doesn't quite jive. There's like May, they have a whole bunch of water and we have a whole bunch of sun. But other than a couple of overlaps like that, most months it's a marriage made in heaven. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so of interest, a square 1,000 square foot roof can fit about 36 solar panels, typical size solar panels. So I'm going to use that in my example. So here is a 2,000 watt solar array. That's 4 panels, typically, and 1 week. So you can see a nice sunny day is great. A day with a whole bunch of clouds going by, you make a different amount of power. Gets, a really overcast rainy day, you get hardly any. And then intermittent clouds, and then a perfectly clear day. So this is off some of my own panels. So I happen to have this, made a nice graph. So this is here, and it was on those days. So you can see, and it was for 4 panels. So you can see it made almost, at the very peak at noon, because the way the panels were, they made their nameplate. But all the rest of the day, it's much less because the angle's not right, or the sun is lower. There's a bunch of different things, or there's cloud. So if you have a battery backup system, like a 20 kilowatt hour battery that's part of your system, and you're off grid, when it's peaking during the day, you charge the batteries and you use it at night. So that's how the system would work. And that works perfectly well. The problem is batteries only last for a day or two. You can't afford a gigantic. It would take, I think it was, I don't remember the number, but hundreds of thousands of dollars of batteries if you were trying to do seasonality. This is what the seasons look like. So if you could charge it in the middle of the, in the June-July period, and then pull it out again in the wintertime, it'd be great. But you would need more than a house full of batteries to keep your house going. So completely impractical. However, BC Hydro has got water in the dam. That's your battery. Okay, so what this is what it looks like for something that is facing exactly south with a 30-degree pitch, which is pretty ideal for this area. You'll hear people say your pitch should be the same as the latitude, which would make it 49. However, in our area, because of the weather, a 30-degree actually for the year makes the most power. And that's because in the wintertime, the 49 is designed to catch your winter. You'd want to do that if you were off grid. But for us, being shallower is better because you make way more in the summer. So you make more in the summer than you lose in the winter. Okay. So how much do you need? So with a south 30-degree tilt, 36 panels makes 16 megawatts in the year, which, remember, we needed I think a 15,000 15 megawatt amount to cover you for the year. So this is enough for the average house to become completely net zero power-wise. It's got a cost. You'd save $3,000 a year on your bill, and payback time is 7 years without any before you count the credits. It's actually lower. You should get $5,000 back for this, so it's even better. Okay, now flat. No, it's water with here. It's made flat. Okay, so if it's flat, if you have a flat roof, you can't get 36 on it because you have to raise them up at least 10 or 15 degrees to have them work properly, which means this part would shade the next one behind it. So when you have it flat, you actually have to leave a row in between each one. So you would only get 27 panels on a flat roof. However, it actually has almost the same payback. Okay, it was 7 point something, I rounded up to 8. If you point west, it's the next best one with a payback of 10. Now, this is under the old system. Now, BC Hydro has just recently put in a time of day rate, and peak happens in the afternoon, not during the noon time period. So you can actually save money by having it pointing west or east. So you can actually get pretty decent paybacks, even if it isn't the ideal south-facing roof. And this has become really an issue in California, where a lot of more people have gone to solar. They have so many roofs facing south that the value of power on a sunny day goes almost to zero, because they don't need it. They have to ramp all of their other producers down, and they're just flooded with electricity. So actually BC Hydro buys it during the day and then sells it back at triple or quadruple the price at night. So that's helping keep our rates down. So I don't know if anybody knew that, but it's pretty cool. It's great having water behind a dam. It gives you lots of flexibility. Okay, so that's that. So how do you do the payback? Okay, so you're gonna say, I have either electric or non-electric heat, which tells me how much I'm consuming, because that tells you what the maximum. BC Hydro doesn't want you to produce more in the year than you're actually making or consuming. So when you make the application, they generally complain if it's too much more than what your usage was in the previous year. I think that's changing, but my experience has been even lately that they much prefer you try to keep it close to zero, not past it. Anyway, so you get the size of the solar array, the installed cost, subtract whatever the rebate is, and right now I think you probably get a $5,000 rebate. There's how much electricity you produce, that saves so much per year, and you would need to earn $3,160 to, sorry, it's too small for my glasses. So that's your payback. You get a 7-year payback, which is pretty good for something that is guaranteed to run for 25 years and probably will last indefinitely. Okay, and I just wanted to talk about battery backup, because if you live in Roberts Creek, I don't know how, Gibson's is actually a lot better, but I have had over a dozen power outages last year. One of them lasted 32 hours. So having battery backup is really, really nice. We don't even notice it, just power goes out, lights don't even flicker, things keep going. So you can get it to be that stable. And I've got 2 freezers and 2 fridges because I've got a huge garden and I want to keep it going, and can't afford to have those not work. So if you're like that, or if you've got a CPAP machine, or any reason why you really need the power on, other than it's darn nice to have it be convenient and have the internet still work and everything, it's really worth having. Okay. The other thing about it that I want to point out is, if you have panels on your roof and you don't have a battery backup system, when the power goes out for BC Hydro, your panels will stop producing. If you don't have that battery backup with the automatic disconnect switch, by design, if they don't see BC Hydro power on the line, they will not produce power. And that's why BC Hydro does it, because they don't want to have their linemen electrocuted by you back feeding onto the hydro lines. Right? So it's a safety issue. So I have enough panels on my house, I can just go indefinitely. earthquake and my house is still standing, or wildfire or something that took down BC Hydro lines for 6 weeks, I could help all my neighbors by charging their cell phones and helping out with whatever's required. Okay, so that's batteries. How's it?
5 after.
Okay, very short time. Do we have any questions? Yes.
So you have,
Let's get the mic here. So.
hello. So you have solar panels on your house, that's correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And you do the buyback with BC Hydro?
Yes, the net metering system is what they call it.
Do you have any problem with your housing insurance?
None whatsoever.
Because I heard that they're gonna treat that as a small business and then your house insurance changes. Is there any truth to that?
I have not heard that at all. Certainly haven't run into it. Revenue Canada doesn't call it an income,
Okay.
which is one of the really good things, because instead of paying $100 to BC Hydro with my after-tax dollars, I'm saving that $100, which is worth $125. I would have to earn $125 to get it. So that's a good thing. Now, if the rules change, that could change, but at the moment, that's the way it works.
Okay, thank you.
It's definitely not a business.
Yes, could you just explain why BC Hydro doesn't want people making money on solar investment?
The big boys,
Well, I think,
they got the rules.
yeah, they're a monopoly. They want to keep control of it. They don't want neighborhoods to get excessive amount. Like if once enough people in the neighborhood have put power on, they would have to say, no, you can't anymore, because the system can't handle it. Right? You can't have everybody making more than they use. So I think they just decided, I think just as practical, keep people close to net zero.
That sums it up.
I think that's what's happening.
They also don't want to pay you more.
They
They
that's
don't want
right.
to pay you more than they can buy it from somewhere else for, effectively.
Right,
Yeah.
because they can buy it from California for really cheap during the noon hour time. So they'd much rather do that than pay me 9.9 cents, which is what the credit's worth.
But do they have to change that policy, or it means they're gonna have to invest in neighborhood adjustments to allow lots more solar in the future?
I think they have adjusted. They've gone to time of day pricing, which is the first step. At the moment, it's optional, but I said most places it's not optional. That's how it works. You pay more during peak time. We've been very lucky here to just have a nice fixed rate. It keeps things simple for the consumer. It's really not efficient. Ideally, people should be saying, "Oh, gee, I should be running my appliance when things are cheap." And there's not a huge load on the system.
But primarily is BC Hydro not allowing the net zero the transition fast enough. They're in the way of the transition rather than actually promoting it.
That's getting into politics. I'm not sure that. I've been on net zero since 2014. They brought it in. It's worked great. I feel like I've been supported.
And just to be clear, they give you a little bit of money if you overproduce, but not very much.
Right.
But I mean, I feel personally like the net zero program is an absolute gift.
It is. It's fantastic.
I mean, I don't need a battery because they store it at 100% efficiency for whenever I need it throughout the year. So I'm thinking, without it all of this wouldn't really be possible in the same way. So I feel like, it's great that they have it. Whether or not it's a problem, I don't know. That's their energy modeling probably to figure out.
Yeah, it's we can easily do battery backup for a day or two, but for seasonality, just not possible. It's completely impractical. How's your time?
7:10.
Okay. Last question.
But they also buy it back from people that produce it at 10 cents and they sell it to you at the high at 15.
Yep.
And if you can keep it in the summertime, you keep it down on the 8 cents on the step program. But they're the big boys. They write the rules. You don't like it, go someplace else.
Yeah. But quite honestly, I mean, when you think about what they have to do to maintain our power lines, I mean, you see how many trucks are out there and replacing poles because trees have fallen out. I think my $11 every 2 months or $12 is an incredible bargain. Really.
And we don't have fires from high tension wires.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Sherry.
Thanks, Jerry. So just two little things that I want to add on to that. I've installed more than 100 solar systems in British Columbia, so I'm actually one of the most experienced installers here in the province. And what I found is that in almost all cases, you actually run out of roof space on your house for how much solar power you can produce before you actually run out of how much electricity you use on an annual basis that you can offset. However, that doesn't matter so much, especially because here in BC we have stepped rates. So regardless whether you're on the time of day billing that they have as optional or the older fixed 24-hour same rate plan, they will every month you get a certain amount of electricity at the step 1 rate, which is around 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And then if you go over that, you go into step 2, which they charge you about 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So even if you're only able to cover, 70-80% of how much power you use on an annual basis, keeping yourself out of that step 2 rate is a very big saving. All right, so I'm just going to go through some of the BC Hydro rebates that are available. There is also a $40,000 interest-free loan through Greener Homes Canada that you can apply towards solar, but Ross will be going into more detail about that for using it for solar as well as other programs that you can get for them. So last summer, BC Hydro finally brought on rebates and grants for solar systems, which we're very excited about, especially since the barrier to apply for the grant is really low. You basically just have to say, yes, I'm going to add solar onto my house, and then depending on which electrical contractor you work with, I do this for all of my customers because I've done it a lot of times and it's very simple. I will fill out all the paperwork for them. I can do it in about 15 minutes and it's done. And then the customer just approves it, and when everything is finished, all the permits have passed and it's all approved for net metering, they will then send you the grant. So the amount of grant that you can get from BC Hydro will vary based on what your usage case is, and they break it up in terms of sort of like residential, commercial, multifamily, and then also social housing. Now, if you had a B&B for your house, you're not necessarily considered commercial because it's not what you're legally registered as. It is on your hydro bill what is your account classified as. So if it'll say on there, it'll be every classification has a code. So for most of them, it'll be, okay, you're a residential customer, you're under the residential rate plan. If you're commercial, you're on a commercial rate plan. If you're a big strata that has lots of buildings, they're on a separate rate plan. Social housing is on another rate plan. So for residential, there is a $5,000 rebate that you can get towards installing solar for your house. The rebate is $1,000 per kilowatt solar that you install. So, but most of the systems that people put on will start at 10 kilowatts or even more, so you're able to tap into that whole $5,000 grant very easily. So in terms of worrying about it being capped at 50% and, oh, am I going to get the whole $5,000? That's not usually an issue. So then for multifamily, multifamily homes, there is a rebate of up to $25,000. Some of these rebates won't apply as much on the coast, just in terms of how the housing inventory here is, although they would apply anywhere that's in BC Hydro territory, including here. So for multifamily, you can get up to $25,000 in rebates towards putting a solar system on. In this case, it's also $1,000 per kilowatt of capacity that you have. And again, it's also capped at the 50%. But even if you put on 25 kilowatt system, you're going to be over $50,000. So you're going to be able to capture that whole $25,000 grant. For social housing, there is a $75,000 rebate that's available. And this is one of the best ones because instead of $1,000 per kilowatt hour, they'll give you $3,000 per kilowatt of capacity that's installed. And it's 75% of the total project cost they'll cover, as opposed to a maximum of 50%. So if any of you are involved with any social housing here on the coast, that's something to definitely be aware of, as that could really cut back on not only the power usage, but the amount of grants you can get from them is really, really substantial. So for commercial, you can get up to $25,000 rebate from BC Hydro. Commercial will apply if either you own the building or if you're renting or leasing the building. If you're renting or leasing the building, you just have to have an agreement signed with the landlord that says, yes, I'm okay with my tenant putting solar on and them collecting the credits, because the BC Hydro account is in the name of the tenant as opposed to the name of the landlord. If it's in the name of the landlord would be the one paying for it. And again, you can get $1,000 per kilowatt hour for $25,000 or 50% of the total installation. So in addition to the rebates for solar, there's also rebates for battery storage for both, for all of these categories as well. In some jurisdictions around the world, the price difference that they pay for between peak and off-peak prices for electricity is a very big difference. The two most noticeable ones are in Texas, where the grid is deregulated, and also the United Kingdom has a similar situation. In those countries, what some people are able to do is buy and sell at the peaks and basically play energy arbitrage, and some people are paying off their whole systems in only a few years. Here in BC, the price difference isn't really enough to make that happen. The big advantage of having it here in BC is for the backup power. If you have it as well, then what you can do is go on to the BC Hydro time of day billing, and then just program your battery to say, charge up either from solar or buy the electricity overnight when it's really cheap, and then just run it during the expensive part of the day. But that's not really gonna pay for that's not a way to make money with the battery system. It just sort of helps to offset the cost a little bit. So the big thing is to have it for backup during power outages. So again, you can get for this you get $500 per kilowatt hour of installed capacity. So it depends somewhat on how much you use for your house, but as a general rule of thumb, if you wanted to back up your whole house, you're looking at needing about 15 kilowatt hours of battery storage is sort of your minimum to be able to back up your whole house for a reasonable amount of time. So in that case, that's much more than the $500 per kilowatt hour. So again, you'd be able to take advantage of the whole $5,000 grant. For multifamily, there's a $25,000 grant from BC Hydro for battery backup. And again, the nice thing about this is that they'll cover up to 50% of the rebate cost, but it's also paid out at the same amount, which is $500 per kilowatt hour. But in a multifamily situation, you're gonna have a lot more demand from everyone. So in terms of the amount of battery capacity that you would install, 15 wouldn't be enough. You'd have to have a lot more in that case. Social housing can get up to $75,000 towards a grant for batteries. And again, they're 3 times more than the single family and multifamily. So they can get $1,500 per kilowatt hour up to 75,000, and they also get 75% of the total, up to the total cost installed. So strongly encourage anybody here that's involved with social housing to really get on BC Hydro and applying for these grants. Commercial will get 25,000 towards battery storage, $500 per kilowatt hour, and maximum of 50% of the project cost paid for. So in addition to the solar and battery rebates, for commercial customers of BC Hydro, there's some other rebates that they can apply for as well. And BC Hydro will cover up to 25% of the cost of these installations. One of the most popular for this is lighting, and BC Hydro actually has a long list of fixtures that they approve for this program, but it doesn't count for just swapping out your light bulbs to new LEDs. They actually have to be built-in LED fixtures. The reason behind that they haven't said for sure, but my guess would be they want the new, if you put a new fixture in, you're going to have a longer life than potentially just swapping out a bulb, depending on what condition your existing fixtures are in. So they can give you up to $25,000. They'll give you up to 25% of the cost for upgrading to LEDs. And then also, if depending on what business you're in, if you're upgrading your refrigeration system, or certain situations, if you're going to be upgrading in heat pumps or putting a more efficient air conditioning in, they will also cover up to 25% of the cost. So how that works is you apply for the program and then work with a BC Hydro Alliance member, and they will walk you through and say, okay, this is what we'd recommend for this location, and this is how much Hydro would give you. So, something really easy that all of us could do tonight when we go home is you can sign up with the BC Hydro Power Smart and become a team member. So what you do, you just go online to your Hydro account, you say, yes, I would like to join this program, and if you're able to reduce your electricity consumption by 10% for 1 year, they will give you a $50 credit. So it's apart from the fact that you'll be saving money on your electricity reduction in general, if you've signed up for this program, they'll give you an extra $50 at the end of the year if you make their challenge. Also, for low-income individuals, there's certain other programs that they offer. And how this works is they will either send someone out to do this for you, it's completely free, or they send you, they call it basically a big box with a bunch of materials that you can use around your house to save on electricity. So you get LED light bulbs, high efficiency shower heads, faucet aerators to reduce the amount of water you're using. They'll give you some weather stripping, insulation wrap for hot water pipes, clothes drying wraps, carbon monoxide detectors, and depending on the situation, will actually give you a free fridge. So in order to qualify for that, this is the before tax income and number of people in the house that you have to meet this requirement before Hydro will do this stuff for you for free. But if you're in this situation or know somebody that is, a lot of people don't seem to know about this program. So this is definitely something to spread the word to people that you know, to get some free upgrades that will not only save them some money, but also make their home more comfortable. All right, so that was what I wanted to talk about. So you wanted to talk about that, or should I just go for it? Okay. And I'm also a member of the Sunshine Coast Community Solar Association. So I'm just going to give us a brief plug here. So if you become a member of the Sunshine Coast Community Solar Association, not only do you get a bi-monthly newsletter, which tells you what we're up to, it's only $20 a year to be a member. It's a great way to connect with other people in the community and all other members of the Solar Association who are passionate about energy production and conservation. And the more members we have, means the more grants that we can get for the association, and the more solar panels and other energy efficiency and greenhouse gas reduction programs and projects we can bring to the community of the Sunshine Coast. Right, questions?
I'll ask the question. What, you've told us a lot of costs along this journey, but one thing that I haven't seen is what it costs for one of these 15 kilowatt battery systems.
It depends. That's a great question. So the question was, what is the cost for, let's say, a 15 kilowatt battery system? It depends a little bit in terms of how your electrical service is set up and where your main panel is compared to your meter. But as a general rule, for 15 kilowatt battery system, you're looking at probably about $25,000-$30,000 before the rebate. So one of the reasons that it's so expensive to install is the cost on the batteries themselves has come down a lot in recent years, but there's a lot of labor and, well, some materials, but there's especially a lot of labor involved in setting these systems up. So to back up your whole home, what we have to do is, between where your BC Hydro meter is and your main electrical panel, we intercept that wire. We then feed that wire into an automatic transfer switch, which, when the grid goes down, will automatically transfer you from BC Hydro grid to just your own sets up your own internal grid. And then that transfer switch is connected to your main panel. The transfer switch is also connected to your solar system and your batteries. So the amount of time that it takes to install the system is fairly substantial.
Is the Tesla Powerwall like a type of battery? Does it replace the battery system?
Yes, Tesla Powerwall is one of the battery systems that works for battery backup. It's actually, it's a really good price point for what you get. Unfortunately, about 3-4 days ago, the BC government announced that any Tesla related products are now no longer eligible for any grants of any kind. But there are, even if with not being able to get the Tesla products, there's plenty of other battery options on the market as well. There Enphase, EG4, SolarEdge, Solis. There's lots of products in that space. And even if you don't, so if you decided, instead of having to do a big battery backup where you want to back up your whole house, what you could also say is, I'd really like to just start small. What's something that I can do sooner? And I really want my internet to keep going, and I would like the fridge to keep going, even if they can only do that for about 6 hours. So the great thing now is there's so many products that you can buy either online, or there's even some that they sell at London Drugs that operate as a small battery or universal power supply. I actually have a couple of these at my home. Some little, they're like the size, a little bit bigger than a lunchbox basically. They're very, very small portable battery. I don't take it anywhere. I bought 2 of them. I stuck one by my fridge. It just stays permanently plugged into the wall. And my fridge plugs into that. If the power goes out, it'll run my fridge for about 4 hours, 3-4 hours, cycling on and off. And then I got another one and I stuck it between the wall outlet and my internet router. So I'll now have internet for like a day, 24 or maybe even more hours when the power goes off. So you can, even if you don't like, wow, $30,000, that's way over budget. If you just want a few little things backed up, there's options that are much cheaper. The other thing too is, the more automatic that I make the system, the more cost there is, because the components are more expensive. So what a lot of customers are starting to do is, what they'll say, okay, set me up as if I had a gasoline backup generator, but instead of the backup generator, I'm just going to have a battery system. In that case, it won't do anything automatically, but what we can do is we put in a generator panel. The power goes out, they can go switch their breaker over in the panel from the grid to the generator, and they just plug in their battery system and run their house that way. So if you're going to go that route, it's about $4,000 to put the generator panel in and move all those circuits over that you want, and then There's lots of different brands that you can choose from. There's EcoFlow, there's Anchor, but you're looking at about they're about $3,000-$4,000 to pick one of those up that will last a decent amount of time, and those are sort of about size of a suitcase would be the way to think of it about it. And the nice thing about those, a lot of those too, is they're easily expandable. So if you say, okay, I want to spend $8,000 now, get myself totally set up for being able to run part of my house when the power's out. You can get a battery that'll, let's say it's going to last you 6 hours, depending on what you're using. Then you can say, oh, actually, I'd like to last longer. You just buy another one, and they all just plug into each other, so you're able to easily expand your system from there.
By the look of the parking lot, there's quite a few people who have batteries on wheels, electric cars. How simple is it going to be to use those 30 kilowatt or 60 or 70 kilowatt batteries in a car to feed back into the house in a power failure?
That's a very, very great question. So depending on what electric vehicle you buy, and the nice thing is more and more of them are coming this way as well. One of the more popular ones now is the Chevy Silverado EV, but even the Ford Lightning has it, Tesla Cybertruck has it, some of the Hyundais have it, and they actually have a 240 volt rated outlet that's the same as a generator cord, or it's the same outlet as a generator. So instead of having that $4,000 portable battery, you can also set it up where now you're using your electric truck or your electric car outside. That's acting as your generator, and especially on some of the bigger ones like the Silverado, the amount of power that they have it'll back up your house for days depending on what you're using because the batteries are so big. So that's another good way to go. And the nice thing is, so Chevy and Ford and all these, they have different ways where it's called vehicle to grid or vehicle to home, where it'll do transferring and stuff over automatically for you. But again, there's kind of two downsides to that. One is when it works automatically, the cost goes way up. And the second is that currently there isn't really a national standard for how they all work, so they all kind of operating in their own ecosystem. So if you have like the Chevy truck, then you use the Chevy special Chevy charger that then connects to the Chevy transfer switch that powers your house. So to keep things really simple, and then just use any vehicle that you want, and then if it would be to just do it in such a way where it literally has a generator, 240 volt generator cord end that just plugs into the truck.
Thank you very much, Liam.
Thank you.
Over to you, Brad.
So, welcome back. I see a lot of faces from last week and some new ones too. So, and yeah, thanks for coming. And there's obviously some interest in energy efficient building and saving some money, and it's good to see. And thanks for having us part of the panel here, Dave. So. Anyway, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Brad Jennings, president and partner at Summerhill Fine Homes. If you weren't here last week, I was sharing a project of my own, a personal house that I built in Gibsons to a Step Code 5 standard. And last week, focused on basically the thermal envelope. And this week, the focus is the next part of the presentation is about the mechanical systems in the house. So in Step Code, we have it's an energy rating for the house, and we have a thermal intensity that we it's the envelope and how much it's about saving the energy, and then the mechanical side, and it's about what the energy users are. So the first step is to build a tight envelope, which we talked about last week, and this is about not using as much energy. So I'm pretty new to this. Is it just here? There we go. Yeah. So again, the side that we're talking about is the mechanical energy use intensity. And this is including the equipment and the systems in the house. And so the heating that would include the heating, the air conditioning, the ventilation, your hot water heating, and any on-site renewable energy. So, first of all, let's talk about heating. And nowadays, it's heat pumps. We talked a lot about heat pumps. They are, obviously a very energy efficient way to heat your home. There's air to water heat pumps. There's air to air heat pumps. So there's many different systems that we use, and for me, I just wanted to keep it really simple, keep a simple system that was cost effective. So that was just an air to, it's a mini split heat pump. So on the left hand side is radiant lines, which were not part of the heat pump system. They were just an electric boiler, but with an electric resistant boiler. And then the other side here is the heat pump that sits outside the house, and then these heads that sit inside the house. And I guess the downside to a system like this is some people don't like looking at the heads. They would prefer that it's built into a central system. But I think the value of them is really good, and they obviously will give you the air conditioning as well. So that's a big plus with that. With an air to water system, which we've done a lot of too, you get the benefit of the heat pump, but you don't get the benefit of the air conditioning, which is the downside to an air to water system. So moving on is one of the biggest, most important parts of an energy efficient house is going to be the ventilation. So the heat recovery ventilation is how we ventilate. We, as we talked about last week, the air exchange in the house is so tight that we need to introduce mechanical airflow, and this is an efficient way to bring air into the house and have it heated as the stale air is taken away. And what I tried to show here on the left-hand side is in my house there's only really one extraction, I guess you'd call it. A lot of houses, they would vent. They would have the hood fan would be venting out, and the dryer vents would also be venting out. But in this case, we used a recirculating carbon filter on the hood fan, and then if you look to the left, there's this little this thing up here, which is the extraction with the HRV. So instead of the typical extraction where we're just pushing the hot air out of the house, it recovers some of that heat as it's taken away. So, and the same on the right side here. It's instead of venting that dryer straight out the house, it's a condensing dryer. So it needs a drain, but they're quite a bit more efficient than your regular dryer. So you can save some money with that. And then just talking about the HRV itself. Again, it's a super important part of the mechanical side of the house. Do some research if you're going to put one in. They're not all created equally. Some are a 75% recovery efficiency, whereas the one shown in the picture here is about a 90% recovery. So that's a Zehnder Passive House certified system. That's not the one I put in my house, but I thought I'd show it just as sort of the Cadillac of the HRVs. In Passive House, they'll, because they're so energy efficient, sometimes they'll just put a little heating element in that, and that'll be the only heating that goes into the house as well. So anyway, that's that's important. You know, if you get a good one, it's going to be quieter. You're going to get better heat recovery, and yeah, you're not going to turn it off, because with some of the systems, if they're noisy, and you know, there's a tendency to turn them off. One other thing about heat pumps, HRVs, they do require a little bit of maintenance. About once a year, you want to clean it out. There's a filter. Maybe you could clean it out once a year, maybe a little more often. But that'll help improve the airflow of the HRV, so making it more efficient, and it won't be wheezing. Like it'll be a little bit quieter too. So, any questions about HRVs?
Do they monitor your humidity or your cleanliness of your air? I know you said there was a filter.
Yeah, so there's different HRVs can do different things. I guess the ERVs are more humidity control. We don't. I haven't used ERVs so much around here. I think that for our climate, it seems that we tend to stick to HRVs. But I don't know, Jerry, you might have an experience there. But and then there's you can put different filters on too. So depending on the HRV, you can get HEPA filters. And so again, like in the summertime, when you're in a smoky situation outside that we see often these days, you can have nice clean filtered air on the inside. So yeah, so maybe talk to your contractor or whoever installed it and see if they can put a filter in. So moving on. So just for a minute, talking about hot water. Again, in a very energy efficient house, the hot water becomes one of the biggest energy users. In my house, when I look at the EnerGuide rating, it's taking up about 30% of the annual energy. So whereas the heating load is about 6%, the hot water is 30%. So it's significant. On the left-hand side is just a high-quality electric resistant hot water tank. It's a good option. It's fairly well insulated, not overly expensive, and basically what I chose to go with. The one in the middle is kind of a funny picture of it says Bernie finds his garage is colder now that he's put a heat pump hot water heater in, because so it's basically a heat pump that's inside your house, and effectively it's taking much more efficient than the electric hot water tank, 2.5 times the efficiency, but it's creating a bit of a fridge inside your house too, depending it may need to be vented. So there's going to be a little bit more complications, like with the install, and there's more moving parts, of course, too. So and they're more expensive. So I didn't go that route. I think probably in maybe in warmer climates they're a good idea, especially a system like this where it's keeping the house a little bit cooler. Probably work well in a warmer climate. And then on the right is just a electric resistant on-demand heater, and we don't see a lot of these either, but I thought I'd put it in. It's one of the reasons I think we don't see it in too often is because it takes quite a bit of load. There's sort of a large demand load. Liam would be able to tell us more about that, but basically I think you need like 2 40 amp breakers, so that's going to take up fair space on your panel, and if you have room for it, I think it could be a good way to go, because you're not storing hot water, but again we don't see a lot of them, but it could be a very efficient way to heat water. I didn't include the gas boiler on-demand system. Those are used a lot. Very efficient, good way to heat if you've got gas. I didn't have gas. We didn't have gas on the road, so we the choice to be all electric was easy, and and so I didn't include the gas boiler, but that's also a good option if you're using gas. Okay. Just thought I'd briefly touch on the renewables. These guys obviously are well versed in it. I didn't put solar on purposely, only because there's grants available. At the time when I was building, the grants were going to be available as a not as a new build, but as I'd have to live in the house for a little while first. I think it was 6 months or something. So thought I'd take advantage of that. And obviously, we talked about it last week. I think that solar power seems to be the only really feasible renewable source here. Hydro, of course, is feasible, but not very often on personal properties. But and then Jerry told us about geothermal not being really geothermal here, which was kind of new to me, but makes a lot of sense. And then wind. It unfortunately doesn't really work that well around here. There's no great spot to get reliable wind. And then the other thing that's in here is biomass, and I promised I wouldn't talk about wood stoves here, so I'm going to just leave it at that. But in the Stepcoat house, we are allowed wood stoves, and I'm not going to say any more than that. Yeah. So so the last part of building is getting through the verification part. Last week I showed a video of the mid-construction blower door test. We do another one at the end of construction and confirm that it's as airtight as we think, and the calculations go back, and then your energy advisor gives, or you get your EnerGuide rating and your step code rating, and then of course you're eligible for lots of great grants. There's we took advantage of some of that stuff, and I think there's the grants are even better now, so they're getting better, and that's obviously helping. One of the things about the EnerGuide rating is I always kind of it's older houses won't have this, but new houses do now, and it's kind of interesting because it obviously tells you how much power you can expect to use over the year. You could probably size your solar accordingly, and it also is going to identify where your big users are here as far as power users, and so as mentioned, because of the really robust envelope in the house, the space heating was only 6% of the use. The space cooling is 8%, and that tends to be typical of really well insulated houses. They do have a tendency to overheat just a little bit in the summer because they've got the solar gain, and they're containing a lot of that heat. So sometimes we do need to. There's a call for cooling. Again, water heating was 31%. Ventilation is only 1%, and I guess that's basically just running the fan. And then lighting, etc., and appliances is 30%, and then others is 23%. So that would be just all the other little bits and pieces that are in your house. You're running computers and TVs and that sort of thing. What it doesn't include, and it's worth also noting maybe, is it doesn't include if you have a car charger, as far as I understand it. So if you're so it's not accounting for a load like a car charger or a hot tub or an electric sauna per se. So we are big energy users, and it's all the more reason to get the solar panels on your roof if you've got a suitable roof for that and exposure. So, just finally, just to ask the question: Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it all worth it? There's a lot of to build a house and make it as energy efficient as possible. You have to ask, is it worth it? And first of all, I'd say that as far as just monetarily, the grants do really help. They're quite generous, so in that sense, it's helpful. As far as the being in the house, it's quite very, very comfortable. I came home today, no heating on, and 19 and a half degrees, and it's so that it's nice. It's really temperate environment. One of the other things I kind of laughed when David's talking about his Airbnb guests there sitting on the tub. We've got a suite. You can kind of see it here in the house, and the educating the people in the house and how to use it is a big part of living in a high performance house. The tenant, super nice guy, friend of mine, he loved to have the floors really cranking and the windows open, and because it was great, right? But anyway, so it is a bit of a how we use our houses, I think, is how we can keep that energy use lower, and trying to talk to my partner Annalise. She likes to have many baths. That does a lot of laundry. So anyway, it's about just being mindful of that too. So any questions?
Thank you. Just back to a couple slides, you were showing the EnerGuide rating, 56. So this is for a step 5 build.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I've always been a bit curious about step code, because they don't, it's modeling, but it's not, strictly speaking, giving you an EnerGuide rating, and which I've always found kind of odd, because it would be nice to see step code also factor in that it maybe, for example, a step 5 should at least be a certain EnerGuide rating.
Sure.
Step 4 another rating, at least as in my mind anyhow.
Yeah.
It would be, because it would be nice to be able to correlate from an EnerGuide rating perspective, what that rate. So yeah, so I would have expected, a step 5 would be actually quite a bit lower than that, but I had no idea. So I'm really glad you showed that, because I realize it's just one example, but kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, to get that to net zero, you have to, according to my calculation, anyways, a pretty sizable solar array, about 13 kilowatts, which I think would be just barely fitting on that roof. So yeah, I mean, even at step 5, there's still some room for improvements, I think, to get it down a little bit lower.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wasn't here last week, so I apologize if I'm asking something you went over. But for example, that I guess it was a heat pump you showed on the wall mounted.
Yep.
In that situation, is there existing, or isn't there ducting, or is that just a freestanding pump?
Yeah. So that's exactly like what's behind us here. So it's a ductless mini split. So you have the refrigeration lines are coming directly into that unit and creating the heat. Yeah. So there are sort of hybrid systems that they do use like sort of minimal ducting. And it's concealed, so you wouldn't see that. But
Thank you.
yeah.
Does that mean you need one of those in every room in your house?
No.
So no.
To distribute the heat?
Yeah, so in our house we have 3 heads, one in
Just
each
for the
bedroom
summer?
upstairs, just for nighttime cooling basically in the summer. And then we just have one in the sort of main area upstairs, and it quite honestly it doesn't come on very often. But yeah, that seems to be enough for any heating needs. Yeah, well, and then with an HRV, don't forget your the air circulation is pretty consistent. So you take if there is a hotter air upstairs, it's going to get more. It's going to get circulated.
Brad, I'm curious about that 31% for hot water and what can be done. And back in the day, I put a blanket around my hot water heater. I don't know how much difference that made, but is that still a thing that people do? I have a friend that has a solar hot water heater that he uses to preheat the water coming out of the ground before it goes into his hot water heater to kind of take the edge off the ground, the 5-degree groundwater. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we used to see a lot of solar thermal systems where it was the evacuated tubes, and that was a very good way to heat your water. They're quite efficient. But I think that they were a little bit cost prohibitive, and so that was an alternative to heating it in a sort of a typical hot water tank. It seems the approach now would be to just put on a few more photovoltaic panels. If you're likely already going to have that system, and it would make more sense instead of having the two systems, just to have some more photovoltaic panels there. So that's a good way to offset it, and of course, like you said, just a more energy efficient tank, like the one that was in the picture there, is helpful too. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Before we go on to Ross, there we go.
Brad, so do I understand, because I have had the honor of visiting your house, you've got 2 mini splits upstairs, and then a third mini split upstairs, and then no heating on the ground floor?
Yeah, so the ground floor has a little bit of radiant heat.
Okay, that was from your ground floor, that picture.
Yeah, so that's the ground floor. It's just an electric boiler, and because of the super insulation levels there, it doesn't get very stressed. Like I say, today it was 19.5 degrees, and we've got the floor set at about 17, so it's not coming on even on daylight today. So.
Very good. Thanks so much, Brad. And over to you, Ross.
So my name is Ross Gordon, and I work, live and work here on the coast as an energy advisor. So I do a lot of energy modeling. Talked a little bit more last week about some basic house science to kind of ground things, but now we're at the stage where we're starting to think about all the things we might want to do and how much they cost. So most of my talk tonight is going to be talking about rebates and loans and things like that. I think it's also important to really remember why we're doing what we're doing, because at the end of the day, home comfort is a big part of why we're doing these things. So it's important to always, as I stressed a bit last week, always keep in mind what your goals are in terms of how you want to live in the home, how you want to feel in the home. I think I distinguished last week between how you want to feel about it. So it's important to keep those things in mind in making your plan, and as well as the monetary aspects. So here we go. And I've got a handout here, which is a takeaway summary of many of the programs I'm going to talk about. One of the challenges with the different incentive programs that are out there is that they're really big, because they're trying to do a lot of things for a lot of situations and a lot of different types of upgrades. So routinely, I talk to people who've gone into the websites and started to gasp for air a little bit, trying to figure out what they're doing. And so what I'm going to try to do tonight is just streamline your ideas. Liam did a wonderful job on the solar, which was great, because I don't really need to dig into that. It's impossible in this period of time to talk about every rebate that's out there and how much insulation you need to get $900 on a 1,200 square foot roof. based on having a R5 to start with and now going to R12. Can't do all that stuff. But what I can do is help you understand the programs, and I do have a website which is designed as a bit of a yellow brick road to help you. So if you're looking at Windows and you want to know about the provincial program, there's a link to the provincial program, and that way you can go there and come back again and not get floundering around so much. So that's available. So I'm going to start by talking about the Federal Greener Homes Loan Program. So we're going to be talking about the loan program, and then we'll get to the provincial stuff afterwards. It's $40,000. You get 10 years to pay it back, and there's no interest. So if you start thinking about the future value of money and inflation, what you will be paying 7 years from now on your payback is probably better than buying a GIC. So it's worth considering. So the basic framework of it is you can apply it to quite a few different upgrades. But the basic idea is you can get up to $40,000. You can combine it in different ways. So you could have X number of windows, you could have X amount of insulation, you could have a heat pump. If you're applying for it, what I tell every client is apply for everything you think you might want to do up to the $40,000. Because if you decide you want to add, if you get approved for $30,000 and decide you want to add on something later, too bad, so sad. So, but you're not required to do anything to get approved. Basically what you need to do is to get an EnerGuide evaluation, which is what I do in terms of coming and doing a detailed evaluation of the house that produces that EnerGuide label and quite a few other pages of reports. And you need to have quotes from your contractor, and then you go through an application process where you'll send in the quotes to the amount that you're, and it can be combined with different things. I was working on a house today where they're doing all new windows, and they're going to spend $40,000 or $50,000 in windows. They're doing other things too, but they're just going to put the windows for simplicity through the loan program. So that's the idea. It's there are some bureaucratic points that are really important. The one is to make sure that you put in your invoices for the maximum, but then realize that you're not required to do it. So let's say they were putting in invoices for $40,000 worth of windows. They decided a month from now they're only going to do 20,000 of those. No problem. So you can do less. You're not committed to do anything. It's for the approval process that you need to get through. Once you get approved, we'll come back to that. So again, following the same thinking format that Brad has really eloquently put together over the 2 weeks, you're thinking about components that are part of the building envelope and components that are part of the mechanical systems in the house. And that's a helpful way to think about it for a number of reasons. First off, if you're upgrading mechanical systems and you're upgrading envelope components at the same time, you need to be making sure that the mechanical systems are sized for the new version of your house envelope. So I was working on another house today, really, really leaky, and they're going to get a heat pump, but they're also going to do a bunch of things to the house envelope: insulation, ceilings, walls, windows. So now the task, because the house is so leaky, we've got to do some fairly careful analysis of figuring out how leaky the house is going to, or how well insulated the house is going to be, and less leaky once they make all those changes, to make sure that they don't buy a heat pump that's 3 times as big as they will need, that they need today, but they won't need 6 months from now. So these factors, that's why it's really important to make a plan and think about the envelope components in tandem with the mechanical components, because they intersect. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Yes.
Can you do the first part and then, like, and then reevaluate it? Can you do all the exterior building envelope improvements first, and then reevaluate to know what size hot water heater, or is it just a calculation?
Yes, you can. The question was, can you do all the envelope stuff and then do the mechanical stuff? Yes, you can do it that way, but you can also have somebody model, and this is what I do when I go and I evaluate the house, and this is what I'll be doing for this client, is I'm going to go back to them and say, okay, give me the details of what envelope changes you're going to make, and then I have software that I put those, I model those changes in, and then we'll get a reasonable estimation for because their heat pump contractor is literally waiting for me to do that, to figure, because they have no idea, the house is so leaky, they have no idea how big the heat pump should be. So they're waiting for me to do that, so that's a great question. And that's what the planning part is all about, is making sure that each element is going to work for what the end result is going to be. So thank you for that question. It's terrific. And then keep in mind that in addition, so people that are doing solar, because that's another element, actually I'll back up. So a lot of the aspects that we're talking about in upgrades are designed to reduce the consumption. So if you think of it sort of coming at it from two ends, you're reducing the consumption, and then if you add the solar on, you're reducing the cost of the remaining amount of energy that you're going to be using. So you're coming at it from both directions. And then, so for the Greener Homes loan, solar is included on the laundry list of things that are allowed. So I have a lot of clients right now that are taking, installing a project for a client we're working with right now who is getting the $5,000 rebate from BC Hydro, and then putting the balance on the Greener Homes loan program. So you can run the federal Greener Homes loan program in tandem, or parallel, is a better way to say it, with the rebates. So now if it's a $20,000 install, now it's a $15,000 loan, and we're paying $1,500 a year over 10 years. You take your hydro bill, the savings that you're getting on the hydro bill, factor in the future value of money, starts to make a lot more sense. Jerry very eloquently put together part of the savings. So now if you figure that you can reduce, for solar in particular, if you can take that rebate, and there's rebates for other things we'll talk about, off, now what are you actually paying on your loan payment 7 years from now versus your hydro bill that's come up? So it's a bit of a complex formula. I did the passive house design training course about a year ago. We actually spent 4 5-hour sessions on the future value of money. As a little mind crunching, but I was really amazed at that, because that's how you justify doing a passive house, is saying, what is it, what's the value going to be 8 or 10 years down the road? So it's an essential part of their formula. In any case, keep in mind the future value of money and your hydro bills reductions. Yes?
Just looking at the website, it says that the program's been fully committed and is closed to new applicants.
Okay, thank you for asking that question. The Greener Homes program has been around for about 3 or 4 years. And don't worry, I'm not presenting on something that's dead. But when it was launched, there was a grant program, a Greener Homes grant program, and a Greener Homes loan program. This is a beautiful segue. Thank you for asking that question. The Greener Homes grant program was set up by Natural Resources Canada and administered by Natural Resources Canada, and it was so successful. It was supposed to run for 7 years, that about 1.5 years ago, some folks all of a sudden did some number crunching and realized that their pot of money was going to be subscribed. So as of February of 2024, they closed the grant program to new entries. And it was a $5,000 grant plus some money to pay energy advisor fees. If you entered the program before February 12th of 2024, 2024, and you got what's called an AP number, and you've shown that you've let them know that you're still doing things, that program is still alive if you're registered in the program, but no new applicants can get in. So I love the question because it sets up another thing that's a bit confusing. The rules for the Greener Home Loan Program on the Greener Homes website are under the Greener Homes Grant Program. And there's a reason for it, but it's because Natural Resources Canada does all the technical stuff. The Greener Homes Loan Program is actually administered by CMHC, and they're in the money business, and they don't know much about all the technical stuff. So when I do an energy evaluation on a house of somebody who's going to get the Greener Homes Loan Program because it's required, I take the data file and I upload it to Natural Resources Canada, and it goes through the Natural Resources Canada Greener Homes filter to meet all the technical requirements, and then the loan people get a copy of it. When you do your application for the loan, they can see that it's approved. So just think of it, they're essentially a filter for CMHC because they don't know how to decide whether you should get this heat pump or that heat pump. And so in any case, when you're looking at the specifications, which is a very important thing to do with any of your upgrades to make sure that they meet the requirements of the program, you will be looking under the grant program. Just ignore the fact that you can't, and try not to feel bad about the fact that you can't get the $5,000. Does that make sense? So technical side, all through Natural Resources Canada, but it's under the Greener Homes kind of umbrella. And then it's a separate application process to the loan. And while I'm mentioning that, I'm getting ahead of myself. So in any case, I think everybody's got the idea from all of the great talks we've had. I've learned a lot from all of you guys tonight too. It's been really so much detail and expertise in this room, and in the audience too, amongst some of the folks I know here. So just keep in mind that the stress is on the planning to figure out what is the right combination of changes to make to meet not only your financial goals of reducing your costs, your hopeful goals of reducing your footprint on the planet, and also making your home more comfortable. So those are the things to be trading off. Okay, so on this handout, again, every day I talk to people that say, I was on the website and what do I do now? And the websites are big because they're trying to do a lot of things. So I have a sheet that's available here as a handout that has what I've drilled down to about 8 basic steps for the loan program. And if you sort of keep that as your Yellow Brick Road, you'll be okay. So the first step is you have to get a Natural Resources Canada Energy Advisor, which is one of the things I do, to do a energy pre-evaluation. That produces that EnerGuide label that you saw, as well as a 2-page report that'll have some of the specs on your home, because when I come to the home, I measure every single window and project the U value, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get about a 15-page report. And usually what I do is I recommend upgrades for just about everything. A fellow called me today at his house a week or so ago. I sent him his reports, and reasonably good windows. They were basic EnerGuide. And he said, well, why did you tell me I need new windows? Because if you had a couple, and he had a couple of old ones too, if you want to decide you want to change something later and I don't recommend it, you're not qualified under the loan. So basically, everything that sort of makes sense or that somebody might want to do, I recommend it. You're not obliged to do any of it, but at least you're qualified if you decide you want to. So you then take those reports and you get quotes from contractors for the up to the $40,000 limit, and then you start your application process. You go into the portal and you get registered and so forth, and you get approved for X dollars. Once you get approved for X dollars, you can ask for 15% of that upfront to give to contractors as a deposit, so that in case they're waiting for the loan to get paid out, that makes them happy. Contractors don't worry about borrowing money from banks to subsidize clients. Too many nights. So it gets things started, and it also demonstrates to the contractor that you're in the loan and it's happening. So I just use solar as an example. So if you were doing that, you would then have Liam come to your house and put some nice solar panels on, and maybe hook up a battery as well. And once all of that work is done, then the energy advisor goes back to the house, validates the information, bugs Liam to get the specs that he owes me on a certain client really soon, and then I take all that, whatever the changes are, I validate them all. So if it's a heat pump, I have to take pictures of it and take the model number, and then there's a big calculation to do to come out with all the stats that go into the software, and basically remodel the house and create another set of energy reports, including an updated EnerGuide label that I then send to the client. And the idea of the EnerGuide label, by the way, the Natural Resources Canada plan is to have every house in the country labeled with an energy rating. So what they hope you do is take it and stick it by your electrical panel or someplace like that, and it stays with the house. And some real estate agents have got onto this, that it's a good thing for selling a house, because instead of scrambling through utility bills, you can say, here's roughly what's going on with the house, and that's one less thing for clients to worry about. So in any case, you get an updated EnerGuide rating, which stays with the house, and then you go back into the Greener Homes Loan portal, you upload the most recent reports and your final invoices, and sometimes some specifications that are required, whatever's depending on the upgrade, and then they have to meet the, and that's where you have to always talk to your contractors and let them know that you're doing the program. Windows tends to be the tricky one, where sometimes we've had a couple of situations where the contractors just said, yeah, they'll be fine, and then I go to the house and they're not fine. They haven't met the specifications and the windows are in the walls. So again, make sure that you're paying, it's the homeowner's responsibility at the end of the day, but to work closely with your contractor to make sure the contractor's aware of the specifications that you have to hit, so that when I come back to the house, it's a happy story. And I take pictures of those stickers. If you are doing windows, leave the stickers on the windows. Don't give me a grocery bag filled with stickers, because they have to be photographed in context. So that's the kind of work I do to validate the work's actually be done. And some people say, why is it such a process? Well, they don't want fraud. So they have to have steps, or else people might take advantage of it. So it's not unreasonable, I don't think. And I think we're lucky to have these programs, and they have to have some bureaucracy to make it work. So in any case, once I validate the install, then you upload your documents and ask for the money if everything meets. Any questions on that? Those are sort of the macro steps for the loan. Does it make sense in terms of the process? And again, if you're thinking of going on that journey, feel free to get one of these to take home with you tonight. It's got Province stuff on the back that I'll talk about shortly. And because sometimes it's 2 months later and then it's, what's the next thing to do? That sort of thing. All good? Yeah. Okay. Get the evaluation done and the loan approved before you do the work. That's critical. So I get calls all the time that I heard about this program and we just put all new windows in. No, sadly. Okay, so what is a home energy evaluation? Without getting too far, just keep an eye on the clock here. We don't need to get too far into it. But basically, it's everything we've been talking about, all the different aspects of the house from top to bottom that have anything to do with the energy consumption, creation, and loss of. And remember that we've talked about HRVs and ERVs. They're actually considered part of the house envelope rather than the mechanical use intensity. Because if you think about it, it's part of the wall because it's moving air in and out. And a lot of companies, there was a question about ERVs. Some companies, I was at Buildex exhibiting there last a week or two ago, and some companies actually are just making ERVs now. And the value, you don't necessarily have to live in a really humid climate to get the value of them, because inside the house, we make a lot of moisture. Showers, baths, washing, people to pets, dogs, that sort of thing. So they have some, and as I say, some of them, I'm not allowed to plug manufacturers because I'm a basically product and contractor agnostic because I'm licensed to actually evaluate these things. But there are products out there that are major manufacturers that are going just ERVs now. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered all that stuff, so we don't need to get into too much detail here. And so this is the idea here: reduce the heating and cooling demand. And the and just to clarify, because there was a question or two on heat pumps. One thing, a question I get a lot is people not realizing that heat pumps are moving refrigerant and not air in terms of the energy. They might be blowing it, but between the outside and the inside, heat pumps are moving refrigerant and not air. And the reason that they're so effective is that they, as part of the process of moving air between a hot situation and a cool situation, energy is actually being created in that process. That's why you can get a baseboard heater gives you 100% efficiency. You put 1 gigajoule in, you get 1 gigajoule out. A good heat pump may be giving you 2.5 or 3.5 times efficiency because you put 1 gigajoule in and you're getting maybe 3 out because the refrigerant is changing its state in the process of moving in and out of the house and is creating energy at that time. So that's the reason for that great efficiency. Jerry did a wonderful job talking about all these different appliances and light bulbs and things. So reduce demand. And then just to clarify on the heat pumps, so there's basically two, in terms of air source heat pumps, there's basically 2 different ideas. There's a ducted system, and if you have a furnace, we'll talk about that in a moment or two, they're with an air handler that blows air through ducts into your house. That is very similar to the internal component of a ducted heat pump. So you have a fan coil outside, and then you have an air handler inside that's blowing air through the house. The refrigerant is coming inside to outside, or outside to inside and inside to outside, and the air is being blown over a coil in the air handler to either heat or cool the house. Does that all make sense? So refrigerant is what's moving inside and outside. The air is just moving in the house. That's why you need the HRV, because the heat pump is not moving air in and out of the house. That's the HRV's job. Okay? And then you have the mini split system where it's the same idea. You've got the coil outside, and then you have the heads that Brad was talking about and we looked at up top here on the inside. So that's the difference. And it just depends on the house. If you're doing most of what I'm talking about here is for retrofits for existing homes. I'll talk about a new a bit just at the end. So when you're retrofitting, there's always a logistical issue. If you have a house with only baseboard heaters and no ducts, obviously that's a more complicated retrofit to try to put a ducted system in, depending on the configuration of the house. Sometimes there's a crawl space that can be used to make it fairly simple. So again, that's a question for your contractors. My job basically is to, if you're looking to do this with the loan, is to set you up for that, and then you work with your contractors to make the right choices. So renewable options, again, all part of the plan. You saw the EnerGuide label, how we can, reduce the amount of gigajoules that we use. Okay, so provincial. We've talked about the BC Hydro. Now, one of the things that's a little bit confusing is, and on this sheet on the back, again, feel free to come and get one at the end and you'll see more about this in a moment, is Clean BC Better Homes is sort of a macro program. Some of the rebate money, and I'm careful to use the word rebate always this, because that's what they call them for simplicity, and we don't think about Greener Homes grants and that sort of thing. The provincial rebates, if you think of them as a category under Clean BC, except for the solar rebate, that this was a great breakout the way we've done it, use Clean BC as the front door to learn about all those rebates. Some of them are funded by BC Hydro, some of them are funded by FortisBC, and some of them are funded by the province, in some cases with support from the feds behind the scene. But use Clean BC as the front door. Worry about who's actually paying it when you get to the end and you're sending in your application, because they'll tell you to send it to BC Hydro or to Fortis or whatever, just for simplicity. Because if you go onto BC Hydro's website, you'll see some of the things in Clean BC. You go to Fortis, you'll see some of them. It's just go to Clean BC and then you'll get it there. And it's almost simple, but not quite. One of the really, really good things that Clean BC Better Homes did last year is they took a program called it used to be called the Income Qualified Program. It wasn't very well known, and it was a bit complicated, and they expanded it tremendously, and they call it the Energy Savings Rebate Program. So that's the one over here on the right. So if you're looking at rebates, this is where the most money is. But there's, similar to the chart that Liam showed, there's a household income qualification level, and it varies a little bit on what you want to do. They're more flexible. If your income is higher, you can still get some heat pump money under this, but maybe not other things. In any case, under this program, there's quite a lot of money. You can get 10 or 15,000 towards heat pumps under this, but you have to meet both the household income qualifications and the value of the house. And sadly or happily, our real estate on the house, on the housing market here is a little on the high side for this, so you may or may not qualify. So basically what I advise people to do, look at the chart, see if you qualify. If not, don't think about it anymore. Because and if you get into the website's pretty sprawling, and if you get banging around looking at what seem to be really big rebates in this one, it'll just make you sad. But what's really good about this program is for people that couldn't access the other programs, the contractor bills the government directly. This was a huge problem because lower income people couldn't bridge the money to pay for it up front and get the rebates. So it's a great program, but it has some limitations of access. If you do want to do it, you need to get registered in it first. You don't need to have me come and do, it's not required for me to come and do an energy evaluation, but some people have me come anyway so they can figure out what to do and make good decisions. So that's your option. So check this out. If you're in it, great. If not, then you're looking at the home renovation rebates, and just stay there. And the links on my website are mostly to this. So again, if you look and you'll see provincial programs. And here you have, again, I won't get into the weeds of the amounts because there's too many. And but this program, no low income qualifiers, no property value limits, and it's available for quite a long list of things. There's a formula for each thing, and you have to make sure you meet the specs. If I do an evaluation and you do things in 3 different categories, so say heat pump and some new windows and some roof insulation, there's a $2,000 bonus just for being a good BC citizen and doing 3 different things, provided you get the it's meant to help offset the EnerGuide evaluation. And even if you do two things, there's $300 in this program. So it's a pretty good system. And there's keep an eye on it because there's a new heat pump rebate coming into this program May 1st. And if you are switching from a baseboard heater to an electric heat pump, right now there's only about $1,000 available as a rebate. There's going to be 4. There's going to be a little more work to do on the sizing. One of the big problems with, I'm watching the clock here, so I'll keep moving quickly, so I don't want to keep it too late. But one of the big issues with heat pumps, Natural Resources of Canada did a survey on 47,000 heat pumps. Yeah, it was a lot that went in under the Greener Homes program. 25% of them were oversized because the contractor just said, "Yeah, put that much." And heat pumps are designed to run on a gradual, smooth change basis, and if they're too big, they short cycle. You lose the efficiency of the operation, and the machine you pay more for the machine, and it wears out sooner. So the idea with this new rebate is there'll be a little more detailed evaluation in terms of to specify the right size. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at heat pumps. Talk to your contractor about sizing. Any questions on? And this slide is basically on this sheet to get you started. So the main thing to remember: 2 different programs. Pick your stream. You can do things. I have a client that is qualifying for some things, some items in that. You can't do the same item in both streams, but there are situations where you can do an item in that stream and in this stream. And in this system, basically you send in your invoices and you're within 6 months of putting it in. And they turn around pretty quick. And I should mention 800 number helpline on this program. Fabulously trained people, and they usually pick the phone up, and if they don't know the answer, they go find somebody and they call you back. I've used them over quite a period of time, and they're very, very patient and helpful. So feel free to take advantage of that. Okay, so just to round up here, this is a newer rebate, and it doesn't fall as cleanly under the Clean BC element, and it's also, there's a version of it available for new homes as well. This is what's called a dual fuel heat pump system. So if you have a high performance gas furnace, in some case people have them already, you can have a coil that is connected by refrigerant tubes to the outside fan unit, and you stick the coil in the air handler natural gas furnace, and they put on a special control. So when the outside temperature goes below a certain temperature, where the electric heat pump's efficiency starts to drop as the outside temperature gets colder and colder, because it's just how it works, it'll automatically switch to gas. There's an efficiency balance. So that's what's called a dual fuel system, where it picks its most efficient method of operation. And they've just, a few months ago, rolled out a renovation program for that, and also new home builders. You also have to build to a certain step. You have to get to step 4. There's a $15,000 rebate if you're building a new home, and you build to step 4 at the same time to put one of these systems in. So Fortis is in the gas business, so they're trying to encourage combinations. The beauty of it, of course, is, and I helped my son-in-law put one in, and daughter put one in their house. They didn't have any air conditioning, they were having babies. So they put one of these systems in, and now they had the gas furnace already, and now they have the heat pump add-on, and now the house is nice and cool in the summer. And it was a minimal upgrade, yeah.
Do you need that here? Like, at what temperature would it go to the furnace rather than the heat pump? Because I just moved here from the interior, and my heat pump went almost all year round.
So that's heat pumps. You can buy a heat pump that can operate quite efficiently at -15 and -20.
Yeah.
it's not, and that's what I have, although it doesn't get quite that cold here. The efficiency does start to drop, so maybe at minus 18 or something, you're not getting 2.5 times efficiency anymore. Maybe you're getting 1.2 or something like that. Because gas is cheaper as a fuel, there's a cost efficiency as the heat pump, the electric heat pump's efficiency starts to drop as it gets colder. Then there's a cost efficiency of the gas coming in terms of powering it. Do you need it? Not necessarily. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I understand that. That's what I'm wondering though, is it something that's actually, is it recommended for this area?
It's
Because it seems like it's designed for a different climate.
it's a province-wide rebate, and my son-in-law and daughter's house is in Edmonton, where they're running at 25 or 30 below for extended periods of time. But there is a point where I went to a big Fortis presentation and they've got lots of charts and graphs. Of course, they're in the gas business, and they have lots of charts and graphs to suggest at different temperatures, there is some advantage. Some people love gas and want to have a gas furnace, so it's a solution for that situation. So I got to keep moving here because we're starting to run overtime. Okay, so BC solar rebates, we can jump ahead on that. Again, you can do the rebates and the Greener Homes loan. And I also wanted to mention, just to finish up here, one of our fabulous sponsors, the Sunshine Coast Credit Union, there's a banner at the back, has eco home loans, and my understanding is that you could be doing those in tandem with these other programs as well. It's not interest-free because they have to survive and do their thing, but feel free to check those out, and I believe that's for clients of the Sunshine Coast Credit Union. So just to wrap, make a plan, get the evaluation first, figure out what you want to do in terms of what do you want, why are you doing it, what are the cost savings, and that's for the existing home. The routine for building a new home is very similar. I take the same information from plans and model it, and then go back to the client and the builder and say, here's how this is what step code you're going to be at, here's what kind of EnerGuide consumption you're going to be at, and then we can plug and play pieces early on to decide how far we want to go in terms of making the home efficient. And there's something, I won't get into the weeds on this because you can see there's lots of details, but now I'm seeing more builder clients work with me on something called the integrated design process. And the classic sort of joke about building a home is that, imagine if you went to buy a car and you went to the dealership and you wanted to have a fancier ventilation system. They wouldn't go at the back and start plugging some stuff in. Cars, phones, things like this use what's called the integrated design process, where everybody involved in the building of the home gets together, all of the stakeholders, all of the builders, even preferably some of the tradespeople that are actually going to do the framing, get together and are facilitated. This is something I do as a sort of a premium service, where you facilitate meetings where you plan where all the holes are going to be in the house with everybody present, so that we don't find out later that there's surprises. And then that way everybody goes away with a clear understanding of where it's going. And some builders need these, Brad's incredibly experienced with the Passive House and has a great team, and not every builder has that depth of experience, and the idea is to avoid surprises later. With the little graphic here, you don't need to read the fine print, but it means if you have to fix things at the end, it costs a lot of money. And if you plan it early, it costs a little more, but then you're further ahead. So that's me, and any questions?
Start over from the beginning.
Or can I do it in reverse? And make sure you, if you're interested, feel free to grab a hand and way out. Yes.
Just a question about Fortis. There's a big downside to using gas to the climate, right?
Yep.
So I assume that it'd be better not to use gas.
That's a really good point. I really want to get the greenhouse gases down. The dual fuel, it will answer your question too. Oversizing the heat pump is massive impact. So if you have to have a heat pump that will do every single day of the year, you need, say, a 60,000 BTU heat pump. If you back it off just so it handles all but the worst 10 days, you can get away with the 48,000. That system will be far more efficient the entire year. And that 10 days where in the nighttime the gas pops on will have almost no impact. So that's the idea. So if it's properly sized, I don't have a problem with dual fuel. Besides, my hydro goes down 13 times a year, so it'd be nice to have gas to cover if it happens during those really cold days.
I'm just wondering if you can tell us ballpark what a home energy efficiency evaluation costs.
Yeah, the basic, usually for a house up to about 2,500, under 3,000 square feet, I charge $595 for the pre-upgrade. And then at the end, and it's quite a lot of work. It's usually I'm on site for 2 to 3 hours because I'm literally measuring every single window and crawling into your attic, et cetera, and crawl spaces in the wintertime. And then, but most of the work is the modeling afterwards because there's 7 entries made for manual data entries made for every window, et cetera, and then the modeling of it to try to make sure it's accurate. And then and I charge a little more as the house gets bigger because it's just more of everything. And then usually it's $300 for the follow-up assessment because I'm not having to measure everything again. But if you give me a grocery bag of window stickers, it will be more. But if that helps you, yeah. And it's and I try to budget in about an hour. Not everybody does this, but I try to budget in about an hour of coaching throughout at some point in the process, just to, if the client's there, one of the things that, we sometimes they'll follow me around with the air leak test and show them where the leaks are. I take pictures of all the air leak spots and send that, but sometimes people like to see it, so I try to provide kind of a premium service as best I can.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question for maybe all the panel members. I'm just wondering, I've got a big voice.
Well, please do, because we're recording.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm wondering if there's such a thing as like a green homes tour in this area on the coast.
I don't think there's such a thing. It's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
I've just
fun.
moved from, there was an annual green homes tour, and I think people applied or put their names forward because they'd done a certain amount of upgrades or built passive house. And
That's a great idea.
it was very informative.
I think it's a good idea. We might follow up on that. I have a bit of a two-part question, but hopefully quick. Is wood renewable? And one thing that kind of drives me crazy is when I see the hot air leaving the house. Is there heat recovery for a natural gas fireplace or for a wood fireplace where you can get more of the heat out of it without causing problems?
Yeah, as far as wood being renewable, like did a little research yesterday myself because I was wondering what is considered a renewable energy source, and biomass is considered energy renewable. So gas would not be, so fossil fuels would not be, but wood is considered renewable. So as far as the heat leaving the house, I mean, there's so much heat that's coming in off of wood burning fuel. It needs to escape somehow. I would say too, I'm glad we're talking about wood a little bit right now. If you do burn wood, it's really important to burn dry wood and to not dampen down the wood stove too much. You want to burn it clean and hot, and then it's just going to be less emissions going on if you treat it that way.
And aged to perfection.
From a greenhouse gas perspective, is wood like neutral, or Jerry, maybe?
Yes, it's definitely neutral. In fact, if you're putting it into housing, you're actually sinking carbon, right? If you're building a building with a frame, that frame is there often for 100 years. So compare that to concrete or metal, absolutely no comparison.
And if you're burning wood for heat, is it considered neutral?
That's considered neutral. As an example, I have 3 acres. I have heated my home for the last 40 years, and I now have more wood on my 3 acres than I had when I started.
Right. It's renewable. Any other questions? We've kind of gone over our time, so thank you so much to the panel. Thank you all for coming. Now you know why we had to do it over 2 sessions. I feel like I'm still absorbing a lot of the information. I really appreciate all the work that you put into that presentation. We're so lucky to have this kind of talent here on the Sunshine Coast. So thank you so much. Thanks again to our sponsors, the Sunshine Coast Credit Union and the town of Gibsons. The mayor was here earlier, so we really appreciate those sponsorships. And of course, Blue Act Marine Society for putting on this climate series. Thanks again for coming. Good night, everyone.